Hi everybody and welcome to the Larp Guide. In this video I'm going to be taking a look at Larp Archery Safety. So during this video I'm going to cover things like the use of a bow, how to fire arrows, and the checks that you should carry out on arrows. It's going to be a bit of a ad hoc one today. I haven't had time during the week to create a script, so I do apologise if there's lots of ums and ahs and stuff like that throughout the video. But anyway, so first things first, let's have a look at the arrows themselves. So most arrows will come in two types. You have your carbon fibre and your wooden shaft. Now the difference between the two is that this one is heavier in flight, which means that they don't often go as far, but they are more durable. They're also more expensive. So you're looking to pay in the UK around about £10 upwards for these kind of arrows. Whilst the wooden shaft arrows are more likely to break. They're lighter, so they do fly a little bit further. But the cost of them is between £5 to £10 on average, depending if you get bulk deals and stuff like that. But anyway, so those are the two different types of arrows that you can get your hands on. But you also have to look at the ends themselves, the padding. This is the area that allows us to fire these at people and not kill them. So this section down the bottom here, which I have nicely destroyed one for you. So at this end you've got some really, it's fallen off, but you've got really soft foam that's on this end. This is kind of like your cushion padding. Behind that is some more squidgy foam. Then there is normally this wooden block here. You get different styles and different arrowheads, but the idea behind this is this prevents the shaft from smashing through all of this foam and stabbing you in the face. And then around that area, this is then padded by another softer foam as well. All of these areas are joined together with some adhesive, and the whole point of this is so when the impact takes place, it's cushioned, and also the idea is the arrow will actually come away, so hit and bounce and go to the floor. So yeah, those are the areas. Now because of this, there's some checks that you need to carry out on this end, which I'll get to later, which prevent the shaft from coming through, or for this not working as it should do, or going inside eye sockets. There's a reason behind its size, and that is the size of one of these is perfectly made, so when it does hit you in the eye, it actually hits the outside of your socket, your eye socket, which then takes the impact and bounce off. If it was smaller, like there used to be these little ball-like ones, those ones would actually, if they hit you in the eye, would go straight into your eye. Now, they're not going to go in and through your head, but they would definitely not be as cushioned, and they do hurt a lot more. So that's the reason why it's that size and this shape. It's literally it's that cushion or that size is to hit your eye socket and not your eyeball. Cool, so next up we work our way down from this. You have the shaft itself. The length of these varies depending on the bow you're using, depending on the person who manufactures it. There normally is roughly a particular length, because the longer your arrows are, the more you can draw your bow back, but at the same time there is poundage restrictions on sights when you're playing Larp. I'll get to that when we talk about bows. And then down the further end, you've got your flights. They're normally color coded for your ease. So you'll have one that is one color, and then the other two flights will be on opposite color. The idea of this is you put these two flights here, the ones that are darker, would be aiming towards my body, or back towards the bow. This one is away from the bow. The idea for that is that if you had it round the other way, when you fired this or loosed it, this section here would then smack against the bow itself and come loose, rip off, and you get a really bad flight off it. Then you've got the notch at the end. This is used to basically hold your arrow on your bowstring. And there you go. So those are kind of like the elements of the arrow. And I'll quickly go now into I'll go into now the checks you want to be looking to carry out on these. Now there's two styles of checks. I would highly recommend not doing this, which is rubbing your hand down the shaft to see if there's any cracks or any damage. If you do this, I'm pretty confident before I do this, I'll just give it a quick check. Right, if you were to do this and there was a splinter or this was cracked and you run your hand up like that, you're just going to stab yourself. And with these ones, if the fibers get inside you, I'm pretty sure it's like a operation to try and get them out. They stay in there forever kind of thing. So that's due to the carbon fiber. So checks for arrows to make sure that they're fit for purpose. Now, as I said, there's two types. You've got the checks that you should do before you go into the field, and then you've got the checks you do when you're picking an arrow up off the floor to reuse it mid-combat. And before you go onto the field, you are solely responsible, not the weapon checker or anything like that. You are solely responsible that your arrows you're taking into the field are fit for purpose. If they're not, and you fire this at someone, then you're the person who basically has caused them harm. It's as simple as that. You're not taking their safety into consideration because you couldn't be bothered or you didn't have the time to check. So you've always got the time to check your arrows. First thing you're checking is the end. And as you can see on my one here, the foam on that is actually, this would have been a failed arrow. Because the foam away on this side here, the big chunks taken out. You can sometimes, if it's just little chunks off the side, it's not so bad, but a big chunk like that is a failed arrow. Don't take it on the field. The reason for that is it would work differently as it hits the eye socket. Okay, so because there's not the padding there when it hits, it will cause the arrow to kink more. And it's also, this is there for safety. It's a safety part of the arrowhead. So if it's missing or part of it's missing, it's unsafe. Simple. So you're checking the top of that and you want to give it a thing. Sometimes these get loads of water in them, so giving them a quick squeeze as well also helps. It's not very nice when you get hit by a wet arrow, especially in the ear. So anyway, then after that you want to check to make sure this section here is all together. Now here is an example of a failure. As you can see on that one, it started to come away. So once again, failed arrow. This is something that can happen. You can see this. This is why when you get these arrows, you give the head a little kind of wobble. You're not putting force on it. You're not trying to tear it or rip it off. What you are trying to do is to expose to see if there's any cracks like this. Yeah. If you see that, once again, failed arrow, put it in the bin, put it to one side. Do not put it in your quiver. Next up, you're working your way along the shaft here, onto this connection point here. Now, as I showed you, there is normally, there will be a stopper that's put in here. What you want to do when you're feeling this bit around here is you're feeling to make sure that that stopper doesn't feel wobbly, as in it's come loose or it's wobbling inside or there's a cavity in there or anything like that. You're just feeling to make sure it's all nice and firm. Then the shaft itself, if you run your hand up, you're running a risk. What I tend to do is to do a listen check first, where I put the arrow near to my ear and I'm just flexing it and I'm hearing to see if there's any cracking. Because if you have an arrow that's like, I mean, this is a bit extreme, but when they're splintered, you can hit you, I mean, hopefully you can hear that. Yeah. It makes a cracking sound, or you'll start to hear something. So that's the initial check you would do, is to kind of flex it by your ear. Then after that, if you so wish, you can go along and don't run your hand along, but you can just feel. And you'll be able to tell if there's any cracks or any damage in that. Plus, of course, we're looking at the arrow as we're doing this, and most of the time you can visually see it. Next up, you're checking to make sure your flights are secure. They're not loose, they're not coming away. A common issue with arrows within LARP is the flight heads will start to come off at the top or at the bottom, or be missing entirely. This is normally due to someone else who's fired your arrow didn't put it round the right way. Is the common cause of why that's happened. And then you're looking at your notch. If one of these is missing, one of these tangs either side, if one of those isn't there, it's a fail as well. You don't want to be using that, because when you go to fire this isn't going to go where you think it's going to go. So those are the kind of quick, when I say quick, Those are the checks that you would be carrying out before you put this arrow in your quiver. And then normally on site, another weapon checker would then check your arrows before going out into the field as well. But that's only another check. It's not the main one. The main one is what you just did. So anyway, yeah, so you're looking across your arrowhead to make sure that it's fit for purpose. If it is, it goes in your quiver and you can feel happy that when you fire this, it's going to be good. So here's the next thing. You're going to go fire your arrow. So before you fire your arrow, you're taking out your quiver, you're about to put it into your bow, you're in mid-combat, oh, it's all exciting. Once again, it comes out, just give it a quick look. Now this check I'm doing here is, once again, if I was to do this properly, like in the speed I would do it on the field, I would get my arrow out of my quiver, and then as you can see, I'm gonna have to turn this around to get it in, well, depending. But check the end, check this, giving it a squeeze, giving it a quick listen. I'm checking my flights, I'm checking my tank. If you were to do a quick check like that every time you fired an arrow, then, I mean, once again, you're gonna save hurting someone one day. And then it comes to the next thing, which is when you're picking arrows up off the floor. Same check again, but this time when you pick an arrow up off the floor, this is when you will more than likely find an arrow that was like this. Yeah, so this happens, it's very common. Yeah, and when you find an arrow like that, here's the thing. You put it back down on the floor, or you give it to a monster team. You don't put it back, you don't put it in your quiver. Yeah, when I say put it back down on the floor, you want to try and get this away from combat if you can, or highlight it to a member of somebody who's walking around who's carrying water or something like that. You want to highlight, make it obvious this is a dead arrow and you're getting rid of it. Yeah, don't put it in your quiver, because then you might accidentally in the heat of combat fire it. So as I say, you want to make sure, do not take an arrow off the floor that you deem to be damaged and snap it in half and throw it back down on the floor. You're actually creating more of a hazard, and you're probably going to upset people if you do that. Because in this state, yeah, this could tangle someone's legs, maybe stab them a little bit. But if this was fully apart, you've now got a jagged bit of wood and another jagged bit of wood protruding on the ground. It's going to be a little bit more dangerous. So that's just my thing. I like to take these, put them somewhere safe if I'm in combat and I come across an arrow. Yeah, so anyway, you've picked it up off the floor, you do those quick checks again. If it's wet, get rid of that water, check the end, check in to make sure that's okay. Check in this bit, you're looking to see if there's any wobble in there. Down the shaft, oh look, this one's absolutely knackered, right, get rid. But flights as well, checking your flights, and then checking the, and I've forgotten the name of what this was, and you're just giving it a check at the top as well. So there you go. See the cable tie that's been put on this. This is from an event that I went to called Empire, and run by Profound Decisions. And when they fail a weapon or arrow, they put one of these cable ties on it to notify you. Because sometimes these are picked up, well, they are majority of the time picked up off the battlefield by other people. And I'll get into that bit now. So, we've done our arrow checks. That's the safety side of it. Now comes the kind of realization of archery in its cost. So, normally when you go out into the field, you'll have in your quiver, let's say 5 arrows. That's cost you between £25 to, like, say, £60 worth of stuff. You're then going to go to the battlefield, you're going to fire your arrows, and how it works is when you fire your arrows, somebody on the opposition who's an archer will pick up your arrows, do their checks, and then at some point they will be firing them back at you or somebody else. Now at the end of the combat, what will happen is that all the archers that have arrows in their quivers that aren't theirs, they go to a, normally, as I say, that my experience is with Profound Decisions, but you go to God or to a known area, and all of those arrows are placed there, and then you would then take your arrows back. This is something that you're relying on other people to do the right thing. Sometimes they don't. sometimes what will happen is they will use the arrows on the battlefield, go back to their camp, they're knackered, they put their quiver down, they then have a cup of coffee or a chat or a drink and then go get some food, and then, oh, they got a skirmish to go on, and off they go. Well, they're taking their quiver with them anyway. I might as well use these arrows. And it goes on and on and on. And then maybe, if you're lucky, they remember at the end of the event and they put your arrows at God, and then you go and collect them. Due to this, and also the fact that when you're on the battlefield, your arrows, you're probably going to lose per battle. If they're big battles, you'll probably lose, if you had 10 arrows, 2. If it's small skirmishes and you had 10, you may lose 1. Skirmishes are a little bit better because there's less chance or opportunity for people to tread on them or snap them. But yeah, you'll lose. The attrition of arrows is quite bad. So that means that if you do go to an event as an archer, you put all of your money in being an archer, all of your investment, all of your time, all of your skill points, everything's in being an archer. You go to your first battle, you fire your first 5 arrows and nobody fires any back. Or you fire your first 5 arrows, you get some back, it's okay, but after the battlefield you've got none of your own. You go to God, put all your arrows there, but none of your 5 are there. You're kind of no longer an archer. So it's expensive. I mean, I spent probably £200 on arrows to get me through, I think, 4 years worth of Empire, which was, I attended 16 games in that, 16 games, because I went to most of them each year. And yeah, my arrows, the 3 you see here, they're kind of the ones that I kind of saved. All of mine are dead, give or take. So yeah, it's expensive. And yeah, but I would say that if you were in a smaller system and you were an archer, I pretty confidently say that if a smaller system, let's say it's a 30 player LARP or something like that, when you fire your arrows, I'm pretty sure you'll get most of your arrows back. You know what I mean? Because it's so small and everybody's contained, there is no relying on one of those 2,000 people to go to God and deliver your arrows. But yeah, so there you go. Now, bow. I apologise for this. I have a bow. I'm lacking a bowstring, so it's kind of redundant to bring a bit of stick down here and show you. So I'm not going to go too much into bow safety other than, so recommendations if it's your first time using a bow is to practice before you go to the LARP. You can do that in the safety of your own garden or go into a park. Just make sure there's nobody else around as you're doing it. But practice makes perfect. Also, your arms. So I don't use any padding on my arms anymore, but when I first started I did. I had a piece of leather that I put down to protect myself. You can wear long sleeve shirts and other stuff, but I found that by using them, they were getting tangled when I was firing. I used to have a shirt, and on one of my other videos I've mentioned an epic fail where I was called to the front of a shield wall. There was a mage standing there going, come on, and I was a nearby archer, and they called me forward and said, get him. So the shield wall parted to allow me to come forward. I locked eyes with the mage. I drew back, I fired, and the string caught on my sleeve of my shirt, and the arrow went about, 3 foot in front of me. Highly embarrassing. So I like to keep my arms free, and I also had that piece of leather that you can kind of strap around yourself. You can get proper ones for this. Also, with your fingers, you can wear gloves, or you can wear these little level things that go around your fingertips to help when you're the string itself can kind of wear into your fingers a bit and hurt. I don't bother with that anymore, but when I first started, until my kind of hands toughened up and I got used to it, I did have one on. Next up is your positioning when you're firing a bow and stuff like that. You don't want to stand like I am now with my legs to my side. You want to stand with your body sideways when firing a bow. It kind of makes sense. You want to put the most of your effort into your bow arm, not into your string. So when you draw, you want to be moving both arms. And I'll do it that way so it's easier to see. You want to be moving both. This will save you a load of exertion when you're out in the field. Because if you stand there with your arm rigid in front of you and try to just draw the string all the way back every time, you're putting all of that effort onto one part of your body. So I like to, when I'm doing that initial draw, I have my bow and my arrow down here. I then do it as a single motion. For safety, it's amazing when you see it when you've got like 20 archers all together and there's a wall of enemies in front of you, and you all stand there and you aim your bow up into the air and you take your shot and a flight of arrows goes over and oh yeah, it's also highly dangerous. Personally now, after seeing somebody have their retina dislodged due to this kind of firing, I just fire straight. If it's someone in front of me, that's what I'm doing. I may put a slight tilt to my bow, but I never bring it above kind of eye level, if you see what I mean. My hand isn't ever above my eyes. Reason for this. So, flight of an arrow. As the arrow is flying across, if it hits a solid surface, it will hit it and it will bounce back in the direction it just came in. And that normally comes off of people's shields, off their armour, off their face if you're unlucky, but it bounces and it goes forwards. Normally, due to the direction the arrow is coming in, there's nothing really in front of them other than you, or, you know, maybe some people off to one side or something. So when you lob fire, your trajectory of your arrow, it comes in like a flight like this. So when it hits its target, it does one of two things. It will either hit and bounce back up in the air and come down, or it will hit, bounce up in the air and go behind the person you've just shot. And this is where someone's retina got dislodged, because what happens is you turn the dangerous end of the arrow, this end, the sharp pointy end, will now be going in a direction of somebody. And that's all to do with the trajectory that you fired your arrow. Yes, it will go further. Yes, it will look awesome. Yes, it will go over that shield wall and but it will also then more than likely turn round and then go back in the air and come down towards somebody's face. So yeah, don't do it. It's there's no need. You know what I mean? We're all there to have fun in the real world. If you were genuinely trying to, you know, to kill people with a bow back in the day and stuff like that, yep, lob fire is amazing because of that one reason. It will go above the shield walls and stuff like that and hit people in their vulnerable areas. But we're LARPers. We're not going out on the field to kill people. So yeah, that'd be my advice. Please don't do it. So what else is there? Aiming for someone's head. Just you normally when you go to places like paintballing or airsoft and stuff like that, they have rules that say headshots don't count to kind of discourage people from shooting other people in the head. I'm not sure if it's in LARP. Hopefully it is now, but I would say personally, yeah, don't shoot people in the head. There's no need. Granted, sometimes all they do when you're looking at a shield in front of you and someone's coming at you, all you can see is their head. But is it worth it? You got to ask yourself that. Is this momentary bit of fun that I'm going to have right now, me being heroic and killing this thing in front of me, is it worth risking blinding them? Or is it worth risking, you know, hurting them? Because unless you're really skilled with what you're doing and you know you're pounded your bow perfectly, so you know how much you should draw that string back to make sure that you're getting just enough to get the arrow to hit the individual, but you know, but the right amount that it doesn't do any harm, if you see what I mean. The likelihood of you being that good, you know, well, I can't say because I don't know, but it's one of those things where in the moment you're more than likely going to do a full draw, fire, and then that arrow is going to hit them in the head. And whilst they're coming at you, the distance that you judged at the start will be less. So anyway, shooting people in the head isn't worth it. It never is. You know, just run off, move away, and then later on come back and shoot them in the, you know, the side when they're not looking, and you know, you'll feel better about yourself. So yeah, try not to shoot people in the head. If it happens by accident, so be it, but don't aim to do it. You don't look cool. You look reckless. So there's that. What else is there? I just put the arrow down, and I probably should use this for this. Okay, my bow. Your bow is not a weapon, yeah? Well, it is, but it's not a weapon to hit someone with. It's not LARP safe. So if somebody's coming at you and you draw your weapon, your sword, your dagger, whatever it is to defend yourself, right? Okay, well, you'll be very, very like inclined to use this as a blocking tool or something like that. Don't. Yeah, you shouldn't. It's something you should definitely not be doing. So when you have your bow out in front of you like this, what I like to do is I take the bow and I put it behind my back like this. So now, he says, after treading on his cable, the bow is now secured on the back on my back, and my arm's in a position which is comfortable, which means I can move. It's kind of like a fencer's pose. Fencers do it, I think. They tuck their hand behind them or something. I don't know. But that's what I do with my bow. Keeps the string out of the way, keeps the bow out of the way, and you've got all this room in front of you to be waving your sword and doing whatever you need to do. So all it is a twist of the wrist and put it behind your back. That's it. You can practice that at home, you know, before going to a LARP. If you do that, you're going to be so much safer, and you can actually fight properly. Because if you have your bow in your other arm and the strings and all the rest of it, it's not a straight like this, it's curved, of course, which means it probably takes up about that much room. It's difficult, and if they get tangled up in it, So anyway, put your bow behind your back if you're about to engage in melee combat. What else is there? Your bow itself, I mean, without a bow here, I can't tell you all the checks that you would do with your bow, but in a nutshell, one of the things you should 100% do is know what the maximum poundage is for a sight. Poundage is the amount of force, I believe, I could be wrong on this, how I interpret it. Your bow, when you fire an arrow at max draw, will have a certain amount of poundage that will go through, like 30 pounds or 40 pounds or 60 pounds, whatever it is. Now, on a LARP, I believe the poundage is like restricted to like 30, 32 or something like that. I know that my bow was always way under. Yeah, what you can do with that, you can go to a ref or the weapon checkers, and they will have a little device they put on your bow, and they basically pull it. So they attach it to the front of your bow, and they put it on the string, and they pull it back like this, and it will tell them what the poundage is of your bow. You can, if they turn around and say to your poundage is too high, just don't use your bow. I'm really sorry to say, but just don't think it's okay, I just won't fully draw it back or anything like that. If they say to you, your bow's unsafe, you can't use it, it's too high poundage, it's too high poundage. How you can lose poundage in a bow is leaving it strung. So when you string your bow up, to use it, if you leave it in that position for, you know, a few hours, days, weeks, it will start to warp to that shape, and as it warps to that shape, it loses its tension and the poundage goes down. So that is how you reduce the poundage of your bow. Most times you don't want to be doing that, because my poundage of my bow over the years, the 4 years of me using it, definitely reduced towards the end. The distance I could fire an arrow every event was definitely decreasing, and I was trying to de-string my bow. But unfortunately, things like not knowing about dry firing and stuff like that, which is where you get your bow and I'm testing my string, and then oops, I've let go of it, and that's a dry fire. That can cause damage to your bow as well and reduce the poundage. And yeah, so bow safety and all that, get it checked. It's the poundage that's going to be hurting people. Bows, I've seen it 3 times now, bows collapsing, which is normally those bows where you assemble it together, or I've forgotten the name of them, they're like the Hungarian bows, the small ones that the horse riders used to use that look really fancy and cool. I've seen a couple of those snap. Normally when a bow snaps, it's nothing epic. It will literally just collapse upon itself. All the pound just dissipates very quickly, and you're left holding multiple pieces of a bow. So if that happens, yeah, your bow's done. Yeah, so don't be too scared of it. I've seen it, as I say, I have seen it happen a couple of times in front of me, and it wasn't, it's not like it explodes or anything, or your shrapnel goes off. It just literally just goes and then everything falls to pieces, and that's it. Cool. Okay, so that covers bow safety. I think I covered everything I needed to cover in that one. Hopefully you guys have found this video useful. I apologise for this setup. I was trying something new today. I don't know how this is going to turn out. Hopefully it looks good. So yeah, yeah, I'll see you all again soon. Thank you. Bye.